everybody we hear, everybody we talk to, everybody that has any kind of sense, spiritual sense at all, 1% spiritual sense, everybody says the same thing. Oh, everything is so bad. There's so much going on. Everybody says, there's so much going on. There's all these things going on. And everybody is filled with dread and there's no answers and all this. But they all started with that phrase, because of all the stuff going on. There's nothing going on because we're not in the kingdom yet. That's when things go on. Nothing is going on. Everything, it says in the scriptures, and everything will continue as it is until what? It doesn't say that. It doesn't say that, but that's what it says. And so you can't even finish the sentence, but everybody says this phrase, there's so much going on. The scriptures say, and all will continue as it is until that day. Nothing's going on. We've been told 1,000,000 times what was going to happen. We've been told 1,000,000 times things were going to get worse. We've been told 1,000,000 times the whole world's going to blow to shreds and nobody's going to know what to do or what to think or what to believe and everybody's going to go nuts. We've been told this. We all know this, right? Don't we know this?
Right, that's what they're talking about.
Okay.
That's what's going on.
But the problem is they started with the phrase, there's so much going on, as if it's new things, new scary things. There's nothing new and scary.
Like
Solomon said in Ecclesiastes, everything that has been will be. There's nothing new under the sun. Nothing.
Didn't expect the escalation exponentially.
Yes, everybody's expectation is tweaked.
Yeah.
And this is the problem. What's off is the expectation. But if you change your expectation and just go, nothing's changed. It's just exactly what we knew, only more. It's just more so. That's all. But things are going to change when the day of the Lord comes. So I'm going to give you a quiz. This is a pre-test quiz. A pre-test quiz. All right, then say I don't know.
Oh, good.
A pre-test quiz.
I like it.
It's because you're a teacher. A pre-test quiz is the following. When the shofar blows and the day of the Lord comes, what is the very, very first thing that's going to happen?
The dead rise.
By the way, it's not called the Natsal. We were taught wrong. It's called, we say it every week in the Amidah, the very first prayer in the Amidah. It's the Techiyat Hametim, the coming to life of dead.
Oh.
The coming to life, the resurrection. So is that what you're saying? The resurrection is the first thing that happens?
Yes.
Yes? Do you agree with their assessment?
No.
No? What's the first thing that's going to happen?
Don't all 70 nations hear the trumpet call?
No, absolutely not. Don't say that. Show some respect to your daddy. Show some, but you can disagree, absolutely. All right, that's correct. The Techiyat HaMetim is the very first thing that happens when that shofar blows. What's Techiyat HaMetim? Okay, let's call it resurrection. Resurrection. All right.
One of the prayers that we said was salvation rising. We didn't say it. It's like towards the beginning, but it was really cool because it's like the resurrection, the salvation rising.
Right, that's the first thing that happens. Okay, what happens immediately following that? That's the resurrection. That is the resurrection.
The marriage, the crowning of the king. The crowning of the king
Okay.
and then the marriage.
So Eileen is saying the crowning of the king. What do y'all think? Resurrection happens, all the dead go up. What happens then?
Which theater are you looking at?
Honey,
Okay.
you've already said your thing. I want to see what they think. Resurrection takes place. What do you think happens? Okay, a bunch of people go up and what? For what?
For the wedding.
For the wedding, you say? Come on, say words. This is a pre-test quiz.
Words.
Yeah, they go up to dwell in the chuppah.
So you say go up to dwell in the chuppah. What do you think?
The wicked gets destroyed.
Wicked get destroyed, okay? Different.
Later.
No, it's not later. It's a different camera angle.
Yeah.
It's not later at all. It is exactly at the same moment.
Oh, really?
Yeah, different camera angle. And this is what we're going to talk about. There's a bunch of stuff that's going to happen in the blink of an eye. It just depends on where your camera angle is looking. One's looking up, one's looking down, one's looking at Israel, one's looking at the Gentiles. Different camera angles, but they all happen just like that. So that's what we're going to look at. And we're going to do it from the verse in the Torah portion today, the very beginning of the Torah portion, which is about bringing the first fruits. Now, in the last 4 weeks, we've had this continuing theme that we've looked at all 4 weeks. This is the 4th week we've looked at it. And it's this. Moshe keeps telling Israel, when you go into the land, you're going to do this, you're going to do this, don't do this, right? So what's he talking about? Is he talking about going into the land?
Yes and
Oh,
no.
he's talking about gold.
No, he's talking about going into the kingdom. He's talking about going into the kingdom. Now, it's been the last 3 weeks we've seen this. So we're going to go over it one last time this week. I think it's one last time. I haven't looked at the Torah portion for next week. But we're going to look at it this week too, that it's talking about the kingdom. Very first thing it's done when we go into the kingdom is going to be first fruits. We're going to give the first fruits. Now think about that. How can it be the first thing you do when you go in? Plants have to grow. You have to plant them. You have to go through the growth cycle. They have to grow. You have to harvest them. You have to bring them into the storehouses or your house or whatever, and then you bring them to Jerusalem and you present the first fruit. So how can it be the first thing?
Because they've already been planted and growing.
Yes, they've already been planted and growing and harvested, and it was all done for you. It's already been taken care of. That's why God says to Moses, tell them when they go into the land, they're going to take houses that they didn't build, lands that they didn't plow, and vegetables and fruits that they didn't harvest, and I give it to them. Okay? So that's what we're talking about here. So as soon as we go into the kingdom, first fruits. So let's read it. And it will be when you come into the land, what is that? The kingdom, which the Lord your God gives you as an inheritance, and you possess it, and you settle it. It didn't say a word about harvesting. It just says you grab it, you possess it, you settle in it. That you shall take of all the first of the fruit of the ground, which you will bring in from your land that the Lord your God gives you. That you bring in from the kingdom that the Lord your God gives you. You shall put them in a basket and go to the place which the Lord your God will choose to place his name to dwell there. And you shall come to the Cohen who is in those days and say to him, I declare this day, I declare this day to the Lord your God that I have come into the land which the Lord swore to our fathers to give us. Now, I can define everything here for you except one word. It just doesn't make sense to me. And it's really the summation visually of the whole thing. What do you think is the summation visually of this whole process that we're going to do? There's a thing that sums it all up. What do you think it is? Say it louder, hon. No. It's a thing. It's a noun. A thing. There's a thing described here that kind of sums up the whole process. What do you think it is? Possesses. That's not a noun. That's a adverb. What?
Basket.
That's it.
Oh, yeah, something.
Basket. Basket. I cannot define it. There's 3 words in the Hebrew, in the Torah, for baskets. 3 words. And this process uses 2 of them. Not in this passage, and another passage. But they don't really say much. I'll tell you like what they say later on, but they don't. There's really not a whole lot to find pictorially from baskets. Everything else I can define for you, these characters that are up on stage. And I can go, that guy is this, that's his name, and that's what he's going to do. Okay? But not baskets. And there's a reason for it. Yeah, there's a reason for it. There's a reason for it. Okay, so here we go. Genesis 12:1, God said to Avram, Lech lecha al haaretz. Go inside of you to the land. And later on, we're told here that it's not the land, it's a day. Numbers 13, Moshe said, send to you al haaretz, to the land, el haaretz, to the land. But we find out here it's not land, it's a day. And I'm going to say this for the fourth week in a row. You should know this passage backwards and forwards. It's one of the most important passages in the Bible, especially in the New Testament. And yet, I've never heard it taught, ever. Not one single time in my entire adult life have I heard this taught about it being the day of the Lord. Not once. And I've been around a long time. I swore in my anger, they shall not enter my what? And he's saying, go into the land. And yet it says here, they shall not enter my rest. This is God on the 9th of Av saying, this generation will never enter my rest. On the 9th of Av. And they never, he was condemning them to hell. That's what the rabbis say. Say it again. In Hebrew?
Was it Menucha?
In Hebrew, or just like, in general, it just means peace. Just a lack of war, a lack of strife, a lack of any problems at all. At all. For we who have believed enter that rest. We will enter that land of Israel? That doesn't make sense. If he's talking here about land, why would it say, for we who have believed enter that rest? If it's talking about land, it is not talking about land. Just as he has said, I swore in my anger, they shall not enter my, there it is again. For he has said concerning the seventh what? The seventh what? Come on, wake up, guys. He said concerning the seventh what? Why would he bring up a day? If he's talking about the guys in the wilderness who did Lashon Hara against the land, and then God said, you're never entering, never. He calls it the seventh day. And God rested on the seventh day. See, there's what rest is. From all his works. And again in this passage, they shall, he says it 3 times. They shall not enter my rest. He has quoted it 3 times. For if Joshua, so now Moses is dead, what did Joshua do? He what?
He took over.
What did he do?
He became a leader.
What did he do with Israel? He took them into the land. But it says, if Joshua had given them rest, in other words, if the land was rest, he would not have spoken of another day. Now, this is extremely logical. It is, but you got to pay attention to the words. Consequently, there remains a Shabbat rest for the people of God. So he's called, and by the way, this is just one small part of the entire portion that you should know really, really well. And it says, there remains a Shabbat rest for the people of God. Does that mean we're going into the land of Israel? It means we're going into a day. What other kind of day did he call it? Seventh day. What other kind of day did he call it besides seventh day? Day of rest. So he called it seventh day, called it the Sabbath rest for the people of God. So 6 days of 1,000 years, and then God's Shabbat, God's seventh day. Now that is what all the passages in the Torah are talking about when they talk about going into the land. Every single one of them. We've only looked at about 6 in the last 4 weeks. We've only looked at like 6. There are dozens. Every single passage that talks to Israel when they're standing there getting ready to go into the land is not about the land. It's about going into the kingdom. All right. So let's look back at our passage. First thing that he said to do when they come into the land was do what?
First fruit.
Possess it.
Give me a verb.
Possess it.
When he says you go into the land, you possess it, you get it, what's the first thing they're going to do?
Take all the first fruits.
Okay, because you're being so loud and so good, nobody else is saying anything. So give them a chance. I'm going to say it again. First thing that Israel's going to do when they go in and possess the land is what? You got to give me a whole sentence.
Offer first fruits.
Offer first fruits. Do you agree with him? Take the first fruits.
For land, houses.
Okay, it's give the first fruits to the priest. First thing that's going to be done. This is going to be done first in the kingdom. Okay, that's the pattern. Now look at the title of the teaching. First fruits, figs, and the kingdom. So at some point we're going to start talking about figs and fig trees. You're going to see why in a minute. Rashi said this when he's commenting on taking, like getting the fruit for the first fruits. Like you go out in the field, you see, we'll say pomegranates and dates. What do? And it will be when you come into the land which the Lord your God gives you as an inheritance, and you possess it and you settle in it, that you shall take of all the first of the fruit of the ground. This verse, which is immediately followed by the mitzvah of bringing first fruits, teaches us that they were not obligated to bring the first fruits until they did what? Take that land. What does that mean? Kingdom has come. Right? So, this thing about the first fruits, ultimately, it doesn't really mean anything until the final one comes. That's what he's saying. He's saying it's all a picture, and they can't even bring the first fruits until they get that land. So, first fruits cannot be taken until the kingdom comes. What does it mean, take the first fruits? That's what I'm going to show you. Prophetically, what does it mean to bring the first fruits? I'm going to show you. So to give you some, let's act it out. Let's act it out. Doug, you are a farmer. I'm a priest. I'm at the temple. You've got something. I don't know what it is. So bring it to me in a thing, which will represent a basket. You don't have a basket, but just bring it to me in a thing. All right, so he's bringing, what are you bringing up?
I'm bringing you a talit in a talit.
No, what is it? What is it?
It's pomegranate.
Pomegranates.
Enjoy.
All right. Now, he's bringing the first fruits. He gives it to the priest, and then I'm going to offer it as a tekufa and a teruma. And so then he is going to make the statement that comes right after this. Have come to the land which the Lord swore to your fathers to give us. So there's a statement that he's going to make. And it's the statement that we say in the Haggadah at Passover. Does that make sense? Okay. So, at first fruits, where is all the first fruits headed?
To the temple.
To whom?
The priest.
To the priest, right? Now, prophetically, what do you think that means? The priest is God. And all the first fruits are being brought up to him. Because you have to go up to go to Jerusalem, right? No matter where you could be on Mount Everest. If you go to Jerusalem, you are making aliyah, you're going up. So, in order to understand what it is prophetically, we're less than 2 weeks away from Rosh Hashanah. You need to know the 5 themes of Rosh Hashanah. Gesund. Not just for Rosh Hashanah, but to understand anything prophetic. I'm going to say this again. To understand anything prophetic, you must know the 5 themes of Rosh Hashanah, or you do not understand anything prophetic. You may think you do, but you do not. Now this is like gravity for prophecy. This is gravity. These are the laws. And this is the way God set it up. To understand prophecy, you must understand the 5 themes of Rosh Hashanah. So we're going to go through them. So, Eileen, and Becca, give others a chance. Okay. So just think it out logically. If you think it out logically, it makes perfect sense. The shofar blows, the dead, what happens to them?
They rise.
Before they rise,
Come to life.
they wake up. They wake up. So there will be a shout. I don't think there's going to be a physical shout. I think it's going to be this. Why? Because it's Yom Teruah, which means the awakening blast. That is the wake up call. The voice, exactly, the voice of the shofar, the
And they
kol
say that
shofar.
The voice of the shofar is also like a cry, so it is a voice.
Yes, that is correct. It is the voice of the shofar. And it calls for the dead to what?
Wake up.
To what? Come on, say it out loud. To wake up. Now that they're awake, they rise. What happens then? Eileen and Becca, don't say anything. What do you think happens then? Maybe you too. Sorry. What do you think happens then? Use words.
The wedding.
The wedding.
Words.
Come on. The king is crowned. Okay. So remember, time to God it's all jacked up. It's just all jacked up. You can have 50,000 things happen in the blink of an eye, and they all happen at the same time, but one of them happens 200 years in the future and 600 years in the past, but they all happen in the blink of an eye. They happen at the same moment. So time, this doesn't work with time. That's why I talk about camera angles. If you look at it as camera angles, then it can mean this happens and this happens and this happens and this happens all at the same time. And that's what's going to happen. So if you look at the list, these all happen simultaneously. So, theme number 1. Let me say this. Where do we get the themes from? How do you, Mr. Washa, how do you know that these are the themes of Rosh Hashanah? Because of the titles of Rosh Hashanah. There's a bunch of them. These are the main ones. Yom Teruah, Yom HaMelech, Yom HaKisei, Yom HaZikaron, and Yom HaDin. These are the main titles of Rosh Hashanah. And they mean the things that are going to happen. So, what does Yom Teruah mean? Yom means day. Yom means day. So what does Yom Teruah mean?
The day of the blast.
Day of the awakening blast, right? So the shofar blows for the resurrection. That's number 1. The next title, Yom HaMelech. Ata Melech. What does Melech mean? Day of the king. Day of, not crowning, day of the king. Or Melech also means kingdom. I'm just talking about the title itself. Yom HaMelech means day of the king or day of the kingdom, because many times in the prayers it means the kingdom, but it says HaMelech, the king. That make sense? Okay, so second one is beginning of the kingdom. What year?
6001.
6001. What day? This day. Rosh Hashanah. This day. Rosh Hashanah. And it's also the crowning of the king. So, title defines it. And the theme tells you what's going to happen. All right, next title. Yom HaKisei. Anybody know what this means? Because I don't...
The righteous going into the Nupa.
No, what does it mean, Yom HaKisei? Just the words. Do you know? It means both, concealment and chair. The word for chair is kisei. Why? Because there was a big cover over it. I was going to put a picture and I didn't. But when we went to Tel Dan, way up north in Israel, they still have one of the kiseot. And there's benches on the right and left of the kisei, and it has 4 big pomegranate pole holders. And on those poles was like a chuppah. And it went over the kisei of the judge. They still have that. So we have Yom, day, hakisei, of concealment. Day of concealment. All right? There's only one festival where the moon is concealed. What is it? Rosh Hashanah. That's the only festival where the moon is concealed. And God set it up that way so that we could understand this is the day on which the concealment takes place. Yes?
And that's a big deal because that's the only time that we're looking up. Our focus is already looking up towards the kingdom because we're looking for the moon.
Right, we're looking for the moon on the new moon. And it's the only festival on which we're already looking for the new moon. Looking up. The heavenly wedding and concealment. Now, how do Jews get married?
Under a hookah.
Under a chuppah. The chuppah is the concealment.
Under chairs, though? Is there a
Now, remember, you've been to a Jewish wedding. What do you do with the chairs?
Mom.
We lift them up. We lift up the bride and groom up in the chairs. Why? We're putting them up in heaven. That's why we lift them up. I mean, hold on. If you think about it, it doesn't make any sense. You know, you're at a wedding, everybody's dancing and partying. Why would he make a bunch of old men? Why would God make a bunch of old men lift up a human being on a chair? Why not just hold them in a chair?
Because it's symbolic.
You know why? He didn't. They didn't used to do this. They used to have a big, it's called an aperion, which is, you've seen them in movies where they have a bunch of slaves carrying a chariot kind of thing with where the rich people are sitting in their little house, right? They're sitting in their little house, move slave, and they're carrying the guy. Okay, that's an aperion, and that is what we turned into. We reduced it to the picture of lifting up on chairs. But it wasn't originally like that. It was a big old aperion, which is in the book of Song of Solomon. Guess how tall the priests or people, they didn't have to be priests or men were, who carried this aperion on their shoulders.
7.
Guess how tall they had to be? 6 feet 6 inches. Minimum. They could be taller, but they had to be 6 feet 6 inches. Why?
So that they could all be
We can be
even.
high.
So right, so they can be tall. So you can lift it up, lift that chair up. Why? Because it's lifted up in heaven. You get it? So all these pictures have been kind of watered down since we left Israel, but they're still the same. They still retain the same picture. So that's Yom HaKisei, the wedding, the concealment. Number 4, this is the one that's hard to define, especially if you don't know anything about a Jewish wedding. I said this to some people at work yesterday. They said, no, that's stupid. What I said was, well, in a Jewish wedding, you have to buy your bride. Oh, no, no, don't tell my wife that. No, we don't do that. Because the man has to give gifts to the woman. He has to buy her. He has to give her a dowry. He has to give her nedunya. He has to give her a mohar. These are all money, like different sets of money. So he buys her. Okay? Why? Because God is going to buy the Jewish people. It's called sealing, seal like a ring into wax, that kind of seal. A signet ring into wax, and giving of gifts. So this is the 4th theme of Rosh Hashanah. Sealing for redemption, giving of gifts. Okay? In Hebrew, the title is Yom. What's Yom?
Day.
Come on, say it. Say it together. Day. And anybody know what Hazikaron means?
Remembrance.
Good. Of remembrance. Day of remembrance. Why? Because the bridegroom remembers the bride. What does that mean? Gives money. Gives money. So it's called Yom HaZikaron. And like I said, this is all very logical. Shofar blows, kingdom starts, we go up in the resurrection, we crown the king. The king is crowned. Now you have a bride and a bridegroom. You have a king and a queen. Then you have the heavenly wedding, and again, this all happens together simultaneously at the same moment. So now you have the marriage, and then you have the giving of gifts, which means giving of gifts to people in heaven and who are left on earth. Now the giving of gifts, the sealing for redemption, again, it's the signet ring going into the seal. And on earth, there's going to be millions and millions of people who God is going to make decisions for. That'll be good people, and they will receive gifts. But at the same time, he's going to say who the bad people are, and immediately judgment starts. And the birth pangs begin. All of this happens on one day, Rosh Hashanah, the year 6001, midnight Jerusalem time. And I can prove that from Scripture, or else I wouldn't say it. Yeah, okay, go ahead.
Wouldn't be sundown?
No, it's at midnight.
Why would there still be good people on here?
Say it again.
Why would there still be good people on the earth?
Because they just they didn't become wholly righteous. They didn't become born again. They're just, well, they're in between, or they've heard, or they're deciding, or their parents are good and they haven't decided. There's a million different situations and reasons why somebody would be, yes, they're in between, but on Rosh Hashanah, then God says, yes, you are righteous. There's a million different reasons. The way I like to think of it is just to keep it simple, just vessels. Vessel for destruction, bad guys. The average vessels, they're just hanging out in the house. Could be for a million different reasons. And then the vessels for righteousness that he says, you're a righteous vessel. Okay, so here's what's going to happen. Don't forget what we're looking at. What are we looking at? When you first come into the land, which is coming into what? Come on, coming into what? Into the kingdom, you're going to bring the first fruits. This is what we're looking at. The shofar sounds, wakes up the dead. The resurrection happens as the day of the Lord starts. The kingdom begins, Rosh Hashanah, year 6001. The bride, Israel, arises. Yes, Israel. The bride is Israel. The bride is not the bride of Christ. There's no such thing as the bride of Christ. There's the bride of Israel. The bride of Messiah is the bride of Israel. The bride Israel. God says this 50 times in the Scriptures. I've married you, Israel. You are my bride. Why are you messing around on me? The bride, Israel, arises to the gates in heaven, and all attend the coronation of the king. I'm going to say this again. We are not smart enough to judge who is in that bride. I mean, if people say, I'm born again, they're Jewish. I mean, being a Jew, it's easy. Because we're not supposed to be born again, and they rip their garment and they disown you. So for a Jew, it's easy. But for Gentiles, it's really, really hard and fuzzy. It's hard to tell who's a believer and who isn't. We are not smart enough to make those judgments. We are not. And if you think you are, you're making a horrible mistake. We can only go by what people tell us as they tell us their story and as it unfolds. Israel, the bride, arises to the gates in heaven, and all attend the coronation of the king. Where? Where? Where?
Jerusalem above.
Where in heaven? In Jerusalem above. Where specifically? Huh? Where is the chuppah?
Could it be in the temple?
You know, I wrote it right there. You didn't see it. I even said it. In the gates. In the gates. This is from Isaiah 26. It says, arise, my people, enter the gates. And then it describes the coronation of the king. And all attend the coronation of the king. The king now kingdom now has a king. The bride and the groom enter the cheder or chuppah. There's two words for this. The cheder means the room, which is pictured by the chuppah, which is pictured by the apirion, the walking chuppah, the movable chuppah. All the same picture, the cheder or the chuppah, the wedding chamber. For the now, I don't know if I've taught you this phrase or not. Shivat Yimei Chuppah. Have I taught you this?
I don't remember that.
Shivat What does that mean?
7
7. Yimei. What does that mean?
days.
Days. Days.
Yom, Yemei.
Yeah, Yimei, days. Chuppah. 7 days of the chuppah. A Jewish wedding is 7 days. 7 days of the wedding chamber, which equates to 7 years in heaven. 7 years in heaven, while different camera angle, 7 years of birth pangs on earth. They go concurrently. 7 years in heaven. He remembers her. What does that mean? He remembers her. What's he going to do?
Right. You're gonna give gifts.
Give her gifts, right. He's going to give her gifts. Right. That's called the nedunya. As I told you, the gifts. It's in the contract. It's in the ketubah. And becomes one with her husband, echad. And they are both tzaddik, righteous. Meanwhile, on earth for 7 years is the judgment. Everybody talks about the judgment. Everybody talks about the judgment. Jews and Christians all talk about the judgment. And then they start talking about it and everything falls apart. There's no specificity. There's no, it starts here, it ends here, here's the middle of it, here's what's going to happen during it. They just go, God's going to judge. Okay, great. How? When? Where? With whom? These are the things that we're supposed to know. So, meanwhile, for 7 years is the judgment on sin called the birth pangs of Messiah. All right. So those are the 5 themes of Rosh Hashanah. I'm going to say this again. I'm going to say this to you out in TV land, by God. If you do not know the 5 themes of Rosh Hashanah, I don't care what you believe, you do not understand prophecy. You cannot. Why? Because this is what God gave the Jews to tell us prophecy. And if you start from this basis, I'm telling you, I've been doing this many, many years, and I'm telling you, I know this as well as I know anything in my life. If you'll start from this basis, all of a sudden, all these scriptures, you'll know where to put them. I'll put them in this basket, or this basket, or this basket, or this basket, or this basket, and everything starts to get defined for you. But if you don't, you're never going to know. You're never going to understand it. It's always going to be fuzzy to you. And you'll go, do you believe in pre-trib, post-trib, or what? Or mid-trib, thank you. Not even words. Not even words. It's gibberish.
Going back to the previous slide in the judgment, aren't there going to be some righteous here on earth making judgments?
Yes, there's going to be righteous here on earth making judgments, but not much.
Be up in the hoop.
But not much.
Okay.
That happens like a billion times a day during the kingdom. Righteous are going to make judgments a billion times a day in the kingdom. But there will be a little bit of that taking place. I can give you a whole bunch of passages in the Talmud that say that. It says that the righteous will judge the wicked in the day of wrath.
So not all the
And
righteous are up in the hoop.
No. Well, no, they are. But then there will be people who become righteous over those 7 years. It's 7 years. That's a long time. There's going to be millions of people who become righteous during these 7 years, just like the Holocaust. A lot of things happened. A lot of people had stories. A lot of weird things happened to a lot of people. It's not homogeneous. It's varied and strange and all over the place. But there are some basics that make it very clear what's going to happen and when. So this is, we're only going to look at one verse, believe it or not. Of all this prophecy stuff, we're going to look at one verse. Isaiah 26. Because it has 3 of the 5 themes in it. 3 of the 5 themes. Tell me what the 5 themes are. What's the first one? Resurrection. Come on, guys. What's the second one? What's the second one? Crown of King, beginning of the kingdom. What's the third one? The heavenly wedding. What's the fourth one? Sealing for redemption. Fifth one? Judgment or birth pangs. All right. So there's 3 out of the 5 in this one passage. Isaiah 26, as the pregnant woman, okay, we're already there. Which one is it?
Birth pangs.
Birth pangs. As a pregnant woman approaches the time to give birth, she writhes and cries out in her labor pains, in her birth pains. Thus we were before you. So who is this?
Israel.
Where are they?
Kingdom.
No, where are they?
In heaven now.
No. They're in birth pangs. Where are they?
Here on earth.
They're here on earth. This is Israel, whatever of Israel does not go in the resurrection. This is Israel on earth going through the birth pangs, and they're crying out before you, O Lord. We were pregnant. We were pregnant. Who's pregnant? Israel. And this is what it says in Revelation chapter 12 and Revelation 13, that Israel is pregnant with the Messiah, not the world. Israel is pregnant with the Messiah. We were pregnant. We writhed in labor. Your dead will live. Which one is that? Resurrection. That's theme number 1. So we went from theme number 5 to theme number 1. Your dead will live, their corpses will rise. You who lie in the dust, wake up, shout for joy. And the earth will give birth to the departed spirits. Come, my people, enter into your cheder. Oh, there's another one. Which one is that? The wedding. Now we got the third one, the wedding. And close your doors. Say that again. We got 1, 3, and 5 so far. Right. Enter into your cheder and close your doors behind you and hide a little while until indignation. What is that? The birth pangs. While the birth pangs runs its course. How long is its course?
7 days, 7 years.
7 years. For behold, the Lord is about to come out from his place. Now this is Yom Kippur, because now he's going to come at the end of the birth pangs to punish the inhabitants of the earth for their iniquity. And the earth will reveal her bloodshed and will no longer cover her slain. We got 3 out of 5 of the themes of Rosh Hashanah in this one passage. So here's the first one. Here's the guy blowing the shofar, and here's the bride going up, following the sound of the shofar from heaven. Second one, beginning of the kingdom, crowning of the king. How do you say that in Hebrew? The title of the day? Day of king or day of kingdom? Yom HaMelech. Yom HaMelech. Yom HaMelech. Okay, so here is the year 4,000, 5,000, 6,000, 7,000. So from 6,000 to 7,000 is what?
Kingdom.
The kingdom. So here's the kingdom. Whoop. But look at this. Here's the last kingdom on earth, Edom or Rome. And then here's the last kingdom that will ever be, Israel. And here's the first 7 years. Here's the 10 toes. On what? What are the 10 toes on?
On the big thing that Nebuchadnezzar saw.
Yeah, the idol that Nebuchadnezzar saw. He said a head of gold, Babylon, chest and arms of silver, Medo-Persia, loins, that means the privates, and the thighs and belly of bronze, which is Greece, and then the legs, the longest part, of iron, which is Rome, and then underneath that is 10 toes made of part iron and part clay, which means they don't stick together good. And those are the 10 evil kings during the birth pangs. Okay? Crowning of the king. Who's going to crown the king? Who do you think? Give me a break. Who do you, I'm going to be like the foot lickers at the end of the line. Who? Yeah, but who? Like, give me a name of a person who's going to crown the king. Who do you think is going to crown the king of the universe?
Moshe.
Moshe? You saying the Father? I don't know what that means. Give me a name. David? What do you say? Come on. Got Moses, Elijah, and David. Anybody? Any other guesses?
No idea.
David. David is the one who's going to crown the king. Why? Because he was a king. I can't hear you. Okay. All right. David's going to crown the king. All right, next one. Hey, guys, look. Guess what that is? That's the Aperion. Look, this is the Aperion. There's a Jewish bride. Here they are, 6'6" at least, or taller. And here's Eileen in the Aperion. That's a picture of Eileen. You can't really see it. And that's what it looked like. The Aperion. And here's an illustration I did many, many years ago. Can't see it very well, but this is Eileen and I getting married in the chuppah. So here's the kisei. Now remember, everything about the wedding, everything, every word, every picture, every image is all about covering. All of it. It's all about concealment, covering, going into a room, hiding, close your doors behind you. Everything about the wedding is about hiding or concealment or covering. Number 4. Now this is the one that nobody really understands. It's just hard to understand because there's not like a couple verses that like make it super clear. So you have to like cobble together different verses to get it. Which the rabbis did for us, thankfully. Here's a seal. Here's the ring that goes into the wax seal. Here's the scrolls that are open on Rosh Hashanah. And anybody know what that is?
Wedding ring.
Wedding ring. That's an ancient, all the ancient wedding rings had a house on them.
Really?
Yeah. Why do you think they had a house on them?
Because they're building a house.
Because they're building a house. The woman is building the house. That's why it says to Ruth, like they say to Ruth, may you build the house of Boaz and Naomi. Naomi and Boaz, and raise that house up. May you build the house. A woman builds a house? Yep. By having babies. Guess what all this stuff is on her?
The wedding dress?
No, not the wedding dress.
The gifts that were given her.
Right, it's the Nedunya.
Yeah, that's
It's the Nedunya,
that word.
or the Mohar, which is the additional sum. They would wear their Nedunya. They would be given tons of necklaces and beads and dresses and accoutrements. She got a bunch of rings on. All these things were her Nedunya. They were the gifts given to her. And in the Yemenite culture, they'd wear them. And they didn't wait. They'd wear it as their wedding dress. And then there's a ring with the house on it. That's part of the Nedunya.
Would only the bride get a ring, or would the groom as well?
Only the bride got a ring.
Okay.
Because it's part of her Nedunya.
Okay.
And then the last one, the Chevlei HaMashiach, the birth pangs of Messiah. When I originally did this illustration many years ago, it showed a bit more of her and the baby than it does now. And I had this Christian guy call me, and he says, Michael, are you serious? No, it didn't even tell me what we were talking about. He just called me and said, Michael, are you serious? And I said, it depends on what you're talking about. What am I serious about? What are you talking about? Well, I got the file you sent me about Rosh Hashanah, and it has that picture. I said, there's 50 pictures in there. What are you talking about? He said, the one about the birth pangs. The what? The birth pangs. Like he's saying it like it's a cuss word or something. I said, what do you mean? What's wrong with it? Well, I mean, look at it. I'm the one who drew it. I know what's in it. What's wrong with it? He says, it's showing like everything. No, it's not. So I went and looked at it and I was like, oh, I could see how Christians would feel it's a little too revealing. But, I mean, it was nothing to me. It was having a baby. So here's Jews praying in anguish. Here's scenes from the Holocaust, which will happen again.
The guy up on the left blowing the shofar?
No, he's going like this,
Oh, okay.
wringing his hands.
Oh, okay.
So that's the birth pangs. Now, remember I told you about the vessels,
Right.
that at the sealing for redemption, the decisions about the vessels are made. 3 different vessels. What are they?
Righteous, unrighteous, and average.
Very good. Righteous, unrighteous, and average. Well, what happens to the unrighteous, the wicked? They get trashed. There's a whole bunch of verses that say, and you will smash them like an earthenware vessel. That's the birth pangs on the unrighteous. Yes.
But also we can, I mean, I understand that breaking there, but also it's like the klipa, that each one of us in an instant, the shell of
Okay. I know I didn't want to do that because you're drifting into a different theme. And what I'm trying to do is get the themes very crisp and clear. So I don't want to muddy them up at all because it's hard enough already for people. But I appreciate what you're saying. So the evil are like earthenware vessels that are smashed. When does this happen?
Birth pangs,
When? Give me a date.
day one.
Nope. Because remember, it's called Yom Hadin, Day of Judges. Judge. Hold on. Day of Judge or Judging or Judgment. 7 years of judging. And then,
To the end of the
right, it's got to be at the end. So say it again. Yom Kippur. That's exactly right. This is a Yom Kippur theme. Smashing of the vessels. That doesn't happen at Rosh Hashanah. The judgments are made on the vessels, and then the wicked are smashed at the end. But I put that there to show that this leads to this. Yom Hadin. Okay, now let's go back to the first fruits. Now that you know the themes of Rosh Hashanah, and you have the actors on the stage, you've got them all defined, who's who, and what's what, now let's put it back into its context, which is the first fruits being brought when? When? In the day of the Lord. The first fruits brought when? In the day of the Lord. Okay. Here's what Rashi says about it, about bringing the first fruits. And it will be when you come into the land which the Lord your God gives you as an inheritance, and you possess it. Remember, you can't do this until you possess it and settle, right? Okay? Possessing and settling the kingdom is the first 7 years. That's what gets everything shuffled, reshuffled, and put in order. Getting all, right, sorted out. Getting all the garbage out, keeping the good, making everything clear and structured. These are the good guys. These are the bad guys. This is the judgment on the good guys. This is the judgment on the bad guys and their different judgments. And making everything crystal clear. It's going to take 7 years to do this. You understand what I'm saying? It's going to take 7 years to do this. So then, the landlord's Lord your God gives you an inheritance. You possess it, and you settle in it. Now, the 7 years are over, and everybody's brought back to the kingdom. Make sense? Back to the land, back to earth, back to earth. Birth pangs have already run their course, and now all the righteous come back, and all of Israel's brought back, and all of the believers are gathered. Everybody's gathered to the kingdom. And you settle in it, you possess it, and you settle in it. Then you shall take of all the first of the fruit of the ground. This verse, which is immediately followed by the mitzvah of bringing first fruits, teaches us you can't do it until you take that land, conquer it, conquer it. How are we going to conquer the kingdom? How are we going to conquer the kingdom? That's God taking control and conquering the earth and getting rid of all the bad guys. That's the 7 years. So after the 7 years of reshuffling and getting everything in order, then the land is conquered, divided, put in order, then you can do the first fruits. All right? I'm assuming you were able to follow that. Yes? Yeah? Okay. After the birth pangs and the Messiah comes to earth physically as the Messiah, which everyone foolishly is waiting for. Now, I've said this before, I'm going to say it again. I can never remember. Oh, Amos. This verse, Doug showed me the verse was in Amos. It says, of what use will the day of the Lord be for you? Why are you waiting for the day of the Lord? It's horrible. Okay? That's the birth pangs. But everybody's waiting for the coming of Christ. That's not going to happen. All these things I showed you are going to happen. Blowing of the shofar for the resurrection, beginning of the kingdom and the king, heavenly wedding, the sealing for redemption, the birth pangs. And after all that, then what's going to happen? Then God will physically come to earth, or what they call the second coming. The Messiah will physically come to earth to finally set up the kingdom. We're only going to look at one verse about this. One verse out of the 100 verses we could look at. But I'm being nice to you. Jeremiah 31. Again, I will build you. This is God talking to Israel. And you will be rebuilt. Now, this is after they've been already thrown out of Israel. And he says, again, I will build you and you'll be rebuilt, Virgin of Israel. Again, you will plant vineyards. On the hills of Samaria, the planters will plant and enjoy them. Sing aloud with gladness for Jacob, and shout among the nations and say, Lord, save your people. What happened? You're all going to be happy, and you're going to have fields, and you're going to bring in the vintage. Happy, happy. And they're going to be praying, Lord, save Israel. What happened? Say it again? No. The camera angle changed. That's all. The camera angle changed. Here, it's the returning of Israel to the land. Yes? Well, here it's not. What is this? Oh, Lord, save your people, the remnant of Israel. What's that? That's the birth pangs. That's the birth pangs. All in the day of the Lord, but it's different camera angles. This is the birth pangs. Lord, save your people, the remnant of Israel. Behold, okay, I will. I'll bring them from the north country. I'll gather them from the remote parts of the earth. That's right after the birth pangs. They will return here. With weeping, they'll come. Hear the word of the Lord, O Gentiles. He who scattered Israel will gather him and keep him as a shepherd keeps his flock. They will come and shout for joy on the height of Zion. During the birth pangs? No. No, at the end of it, after the birth pangs. They will come and shout for joy on the height of Zion and be radiant over the grain and the new wine and the oil. Well, where did they get grain and new wine and oil? In a world that's been trashed by the birth pangs. Where did they get grain and new wine and oil in a world that's trashed by the birth pangs? They planted it. And a year has gone by. Remember, it's camera angles. It's constantly shifting and giving us different camera angles and different time periods. They plant. Remember, I said I'm going to show you one verse, one passage out of 100.
Well, yeah, it says at the beginning, they'll plant and rejoice.
Right. The same camera angle as this part. When he brings them back, and they're like, oh, happy we got grain and new wine and oil. Where'd it come from? They came back, they planted it, the year went by, they harvested it, and then they're going to do what with it?
First fruits.
Right, first fruits. So now we're back to the beginning. Hear the word of the Lord, O Gentiles. He who scattered Israel will gather him. And they'll be happy about the grain and the new wine and the oil, the young of the flock and the herd, and they will never languish again. So it has to be after what? Has to be after what? After the birth pangs. After the birth pangs. Now, do you see what I'm saying to you? That if you don't know the 5 themes of Rosh Hashanah, you don't know where to put the stuff. You don't know where to put it time-wise. Is it before? Is it after? Is it in the middle? Does it come before this event or after this event? But if you know the 5 themes of Rosh Hashanah, you know exactly where to put these. Does that make sense? At least it's a beginning where you can start seeing where to put these phrases that God says. Okay. See that guy? Bringing the basket with the first fruits?
Yeah.
This is an actual event. It is the most famous first fruits event in Jewish history. Anybody know who that guy is?
David.
David? Good guess. Solomon? Good guess. Huh?
Peter?
Peter. Jews don't like Peter, so they wouldn't have an illustration of that. They don't like Peter too much. Yes.
Can it be Solomon?
She said Solomon. That is King Agrippa. King Agrippa. You know how the people they read in the New Testament, it talks about Agrippa, that he was such a jerk. He gave first fruits, and he gave tons of first fruits. And he did it properly. And he did it as a picture so that other Jews could learn how to do it properly. Was he a Jew? And yet he's the most famous giver of first fruits in Jewish history.
So famous, nobody here guessed it.
Well, you haven't read it in the Talmud 57,000 times. Okay. See how he's got the basket? Now, he was a Gentile king in Israel, or a Gentile potentate, wasn't quite a king, in Israel. And he did Judaism. He did some of Judaism. He's a picture of the Gentiles bringing up the first fruits. Right? All right, so here's how it was done. Rashi says this, of the first of all the fruit. What's the process of getting them? How do you do it? How do you bring the first fruits? A man goes down into his field and he sees a fig that has ripened. What if he didn't plant figs? What if he's got pomegranates? What does that tell you?
So it could be a wild fig tree.
Yeah, but what if he doesn't have figs on his land? What if he's planted and he's got pomegranates and dates and honey dates and olives?
Maybe it's just the first fruits, but it says every man shall have a fig tree.
It doesn't say that. That's a phrase, every man shall dwell under his vine and under his fig tree. You can't dwell under a vine. It's a phrase, it's a picture. It's not real. But this, it says, a man goes down into his field and sees a fig. What if he doesn't have figs?
It probably just means like an actual fruit.
It is talking about an actual fruit, but what if he doesn't have figs?
And it means whatever he has.
It doesn't mean whatever he has, it means a fig.
He's going into the field, he's going into the world, and he sees the fig.
You're thinking pictorially. I'm asking you a simple question. What if he ain't got no figs? How's he going to find a fig?
Plant some.
It's a picture. That's the answer. It's a picture. It's a metaphor. It's not real. It's not real. You were about to talk metaphorically, and that's what it is. It is not real. Everybody ain't going to have figs, right? And yet, the process for offering first fruits is a man goes down into his field and he sees a ripe fig, even if he doesn't have figs. So this is not talking about everybody. What's it talking about? It's talking about God. It's talking about God. It's a picture. It's talking about God. God gave the Jews how to offer first fruits. Why? As a prophecy. So this is not talking about, I mean, we can do it if we want. You know, it's keeping one of the mitzvot, but what are the mitzvot for? To show us God. This is about God. God sees a fig that has ripened, and he gets a reed and he winds it around that branch and fig, whatever, for a sign. What's a sign? An ot. It's a picture, but it's also a miracle. The word sign means an ot. It's a miracle or a picture. And he says this. God says this. This is the first fruit. What's the first fruit? The fig. That is the first fruit. And yet God says, of all your fruit you shall bring what? Of all your fruit that you grow, you shall bring what? First fruit. But then he says, no, the fig is the first fruit. And everybody's not going to have figs. So this is talking about God. It's a picture. So therefore, we can say, wait, let me back up. There are 7 fruits of Israel. There's 7 of them. Can anybody say them all 7 without looking? We got fig, dates,
the
olives,
the nuts,
no,
Barley.
barley, and if barley, then wheat. I can't hear you. Pomegranates.
Figs, pomegranates.
We're missing one.
Obviously olives, you got that one already.
Did we say olives? I don't think we did.
Well, if you didn't, then.
Olives. Okay, well, I didn't hear it. Okay, fig, date, olive, pomegranate, chita, wheat, and barley, and grape, and dates. Dates for honey. Dates. Didn't we say vine? No, we didn't say vine. Grapes. Grapes. Okay. Grapes, fig, pomegranate, olives, dates, wheat, and barley. That's it. Okay. So those are the 7 fruits of the land. That's in Deuteronomy 8:8. And it says in there, you are to bring first fruits of what? All of these. All of these. But no, you only have to do it with the fig to represent all of them. So we can say the first fruit is represented by the fig. Would you give me that? You think that's fair? That in this, the first fruit is represented by the fig. Yes?
According to Rashi, yes.
Well, this is not Rashi. He's quoting the sages.
Okay.
Mishnah Bikurim 3:1. He's quoting the sages.
According to that, then, yeah.
According to what God gave the Jewish people, the Chazal, the sages, the first fruit is represented by one fruit alone, the fig. It's a picture. It's not real. It's a picture. So why did he do that? Why did he say, the fig, that's my first fruit? Proverbs 27, we'll get there in a sec. Proverbs 27:18 says this. And by the way, this is where all the rabbis go on this issue. They go right here. And they say, he who tends the fig tree will eat its fruit. And he who cares for his where'd the master come from? Cares for his master will be honored. And here's what the rabbis say it means. He who listens to his master, his rabbi's teachings, will eat the fruit of his own Torah. So if you listen carefully to your master, to your rabbi's teachings, you will get your own Torah, your own understandings. And you'll grow in Torah. But it comes from tending the fig tree. Who's the fig tree? Here? Who's the fig tree? No. No. It didn't say a word about Yeshua here.
It's the Torah.
It didn't say a word about the Torah here. Who's the fig tree?
The master.
The first fruit. I could tell in your eyes that I lost you when I said it's not real. The fig represents the first fruit. That's what Rashi and the rabbis are saying. If you want a picture of the first fruits, what do you picture? A fig. That's it. That's all he's saying. It's a picture to learn from. So what we need to do is figure out what? Who's the fig? Doesn't that make sense? Who's the fig? If you can figure out who the fig is, you know who the first fruit is. Right? Read it again. He who tends the fig tree. So let's say it's you're going to like this. The Dominican Republicans. Those from DR, those from Dominican Republic. The Dominican Republicans. All right. So those who tend those from Dominican Republic will eat the fruit from the Dominican Republic. Make sense? What the rabbis say that means is, if you're listening to the Torah from your master, which means you have to be submitted to your rabbi or your master, and if you listen to it and you get it, you'll get your own Torah. You'll get your own fruit. But you will not get your own fruit if you don't submit to the one who's teaching you. That's what they say it means. He who tends the fig tree will eat that fig tree's fruit. So let's figure out who the fig tree is, or the fig.
Sages.
You think it's sages? What do you think? Let's do a pre-teaching quiz. Who do you think the fig is? Think it's Israel? You think it's sages? You think it's Torah?
Could be Moshe.
You think it's Moshe? Yeshua? Okay, let's find out. Remember this. Who is this?
Rabbi.
What is he, a Jew or a Gentile? Gentile. And he's bringing up the first fruits. Yes? He is bringing the first fruits. So don't picture all the different fruit. What should you picture? A fig. He's got a basket of figs. Okay, just picture that. A basket of, I would have done it if I'd have had time, but I didn't have time to draw it for you. So you're going to have to picture it. Lift up your eyes round about and look. They all gather together. They come to you. Your sons, talking to Israel, your sons will come from afar and your daughters will be carried in the arms. Then you will see and you'll be radiant and your heart will thrill and rejoice because the abundance of the sea, where do you go? The wealth of the Gentiles. The abundance of the sea will be turned to you, the wealth of the Gentiles. So we don't have to guess who the sea is. Who's the sea? It tells us. The money from the Gentiles will be turned to you. It will come to you. They, the Gentiles, will bring gold and will bear the good news. Surely the coastlands will wait for me, and the ships of Tarshish, that's Spain, by the way, will come first to bring your sons from afar, their silver and their gold with them for the name of the Lord your God and for the Holy One of Israel, because he's glorified you. How has he glorified you? He had the Gentiles bringing up your kids and their gold and their silver and all this stuff to come and bring the first fruits to glorify the temple. So, in this picture, what is the first fruits? Say it. Israel, or the children of Israel, right? The children of Israel. All right, Isaiah 66. The time is coming to gather all Gentiles and tongues, and they shall come and see my glory. I will set a sign. Ooh. What did Rashi say to do with the fig?
Put a reed around it.
As a sign, as an oath, as a miracle, as a sign. He wides a reed around it for a sign. I'm telling you, this is a picture. It's not real. Among them, and will send When I say it's not real, I don't mean it wasn't done and it won't be done. What I mean is, it is a metaphor. It's a parable of something that will be done in a much, much, much bigger way. Set a sign among them and will send survivors from them. From who? From who? Who's them? He already told us who it is. Who is it?
All the nations.
All the nations. To gather all nations and tongues. And they're going to come and see my glory. And I'll set a sign among them, among the Gentiles. And they will send survivors from them, from the Gentiles, to the nations, to the other nations. Tarshish, put, and it lists some other words, and Greece, to the distant coastlands. Then they shall bring, who? The Gentiles will bring all your brothers from all the nations as a grain offering to the Lord. Here's again, the Gentiles are going to bring the Jews back. What are they going to bring them back in picture form? Baskets. This is why I can't define the baskets. There's 3 different words for baskets. 2 of them are used in the passages about first fruits. I don't know what it's a picture of. Why? Because there's a whole bunch of stuff. Let me show you a couple of them. On horses, that's a basket. In chariots, that's a basket. In litters, that's a basket. On mules, that's a basket. On camels, it's a basket.
What's a litter?
A litter is like that aperion, only the small ones, carrying people. To my holy mountain Jerusalem, I will also take some of them. Who? Jews and Gentiles. The Jews who are being brought, and the Gentiles who are bringing them. Now look at what this says. I will take some of them, Jews and Gentiles, for priests. For priests. And for Levites. Gentiles will become priests and Levites. People from Dan. Think about what this is saying. And by the way, the rabbis say this. They agree with this. This is not from me. They say that in this verse, it says that some Gentiles will be chosen to be Levites and priests, and some from the other tribes of Israel, from Dan and Naphtali and Zebulun. Well, you are now a Levite. You are now a Cohen.
Makes sense though.
So everything's going to sort of shift and get moved around and changed and put in order. It's not as cut and dry as you might think. But the picture is very, very simple. Gentiles are going to bring the Jews as the first fruits. Yeah? So let's define what Rashi said from the sages. A man goes down into his field. Who do you think the man is? God. Who do you think the field is? It's not the world. It's his field. It's his field. Remember, a man goes down into God's field. That's different from the field. What's his field? Israel. Exodus 19, the Lord came down on smoke. You know, when they built the Tower of Babel, what does it say before God blew it to shreds? What does it say he did? Right, he came down. He came down. He said, let us go down and see what the heck they're doing. And then he blew it to shreds. When Abraham was praying for the people in Sodom and Amorah, and the three angels came and he bargained for 10 lives because there were 10 righteous in that city from his family. What does it say before he said he was going to go judge Sodom and Amorah? What did it say? What did God say? What did he say he was going to do before he judged the cities? Do you remember?
Let me see if there's the number of righteous.
After he says, let me see if there's that amount, he says, I'm going to do this, and then he's going to judge them.
I'm going to go and see if what they're doing is what I.
Close. I'm going to go down and see. It's the same exact wording in Hebrew. I will go down to see if it's as bad as they say it is. This is God talking, okay? Well, here God comes down to Mount Sinai, right? He came down upon Mount Sinai, yes? 2 Samuel 22, he bowed the heavens and he came down with thick darkness under his feet. What's he talking about? What's David talking about here? He bowed the heavens and he came down. Mount Sinai. He's talking about Mount Sinai here. Psalm 18:9 says exactly word for word the same thing. Psalm 144, bow your heavens, O Lord, and come down. Now he's saying, do it again, exactly as you did it at Sinai. Touch the mountains so they smoke, just like you did at Sinai. Isaiah 64, oh, that you would rip the heavens and come down. So, you know, I read a lot of articles where Christians get super confused about this. If God is omnipotent and he's everywhere, how can he come down? Why does he have to come down? Doesn't he know? Well, Jews, this is easy for us. It's very, very simple. God has to come down because he's up. It's that simple. It's that simple. It's not deep. When you did awesome things which we didn't expect, you came down and the mountains quaked. Okay? God has to come down. A man, God, comes down into his field. What's his field? Israel. He comes down to Israel. And he sees a fig that has ripened. So who's the fig? Hosea 9:10. One verse it tells us, I found Israel like grapes in the wilderness, and I saw your fathers. Now who are Israel's fathers? Who? Who's the first one? Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. Okay, these, and then the fathers. Okay, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob are our first fathers. And God saw them as the earliest fruit on the fig tree. Well, if it's the earliest fruit, what is it? It's the first fruit. So therefore, who's the first fruit here? Well, like who of Israel specifically? Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and the rest of the fathers. They are the first fruits. And they're the fig. He says, I saw you like figs on the fig tree. But they came to Baal Peor, and they devoted themselves to shame, and they became as disgusting as that which they loved. But they started out as the Bikur, as the first fruit. That's what Bikur means. Bikur means first fruit. Okay? And then he, God, declares, this is the first fruit. What is the first fruit? The fig that he wrapped the sign around, which is Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and the fathers, and the rest of Israel, which I'll show you. Jeremiah 2:3 says, Israel was holy to the Lord, all of Israel, the first of his harvest. What's the first of his harvest? Bikurim, first fruits. All who ate of it became guilty. Why? All who ate of the Jews became guilty. Why? It didn't belong to them. It belongs to who? Who does the first fruit belong to? The priest. The priest, not the king, the priest. Remember, I was up here and Doug brought me the first fruit. It belongs to the priest, which is God. And they touched it, and they ate it, and they weren't supposed to. All who ate of it became guilty. Evil came on them, because they dared to eat the Jews, to take from the Jews, declares the Lord. Make sense? Does that make sense so far? Yeah? It's a simple parable. Simple parable. All right, here's a couple more. Mark 11, 12 through 14. On the next day, when they had left Beit Oni. Anybody know what Beit Oni means?
House of my sorrow?
Very close. House of my sorrow or house of my humility. Yeah. House of my lowness, my humility or my sorrow. He became hungry. Yeshua became hungry, and seeing at a distance, why would it say he saw it at a distance? Remember in Numbers 22? Where Balaam said, 24, where Balaam says, I see him but not now. I see him from a distance, from far away. The star will come.
Is it in the future?
It's in the future, exactly. So he says, he saw at a distance in the future, the fig tree, it's got leaves already. It's got leaves. He went to see if maybe he could find anything on it. What is he looking for on it? Figs. And ripe figs. And who are the ripe figs? Israel. And when he came to it, he found nothing but leaves. For it was not the season for figs. So why is he looking for figs? It's kind of dumb. Not very smart, Yeshua. He found nothing but leaves because it wasn't the season for figs. So why is he looking for figs? It's got to be a picture, or else he's just not very bright. Right? I mean, if I was one of the Talmidim, I'd say, why are you looking for figs, Yeshua? You know that doesn't come up for a couple months. Right. What are you doing? So obviously he's acting out of picture. He found nothing but leaves, for it was not the season for figs. And he said to it, may no one ever eat fruit from you, tree, again. What's the fruit? The Jews. May no one ever eat fruit. What's he quoting?
Back when it said they became guilty,
Yeah.
weren't what they were supposed to.
Israel was holy to the Lord, the first of his harvest. All who ate of Israel became guilty. Evil came upon them, declares the Lord. Christians quote this verse and they go, you see, he cursed the Jews. No, he's saying that the Gentiles never eat from you, Jews, because then they will become guilty and I will curse them. This is not about Israel. This is about the Gentiles. The Jews are the figs that are supposed to be on the tree, but it's not time yet. It's just not time yet. And his disciples were listening, and later there's another verse that says they freaked out because like it shriveled all of a sudden. Oh, here it is. Verse 17, 20, and 22. And as they were passing by in the morning, they saw the next day, they saw the fig tree withered from the roots up. What's the fig tree? Israel. From the roots up. Being reminded, Peter said to him, Rabbi, look, the fig tree which you cursed withered. And Yeshua said, and he started talking about having faith. And you can move a mountain from here, there. It has nothing to do with the figs or the fig tree or anything like that. Nothing whatsoever.
Well, could we have faith that things will come back?
That's not what he says. He says, has faith. If you say to this fig tree, be dried up, it'll be dried up. If you say to this mountain, move, it'll move. Nothing to do with the parable. But everybody thinks it has to do with the parable, but it doesn't. All these says is, hey, look, the fig tree dried up. That's it. That's all there is. It's not like some big thing to learn from. Okay, Luke 13. Now he's telling a parable about the fig tree. It's not real, it's a parable. A man had a fig tree which he'd planted in his, where?
Vineyard.
Who is the vineyard? Israel. How do you know it's Israel?
Isaiah 6.
Oh, so close. Very good. Isaiah 5. Isaiah 5, 1 through 5. My beloved had a vineyard on a fertile hill, and he planted, he dug all around it, he put a wine vat in it, he put a tower in it, put a wall around it, he expected it to produce good fruit, but it produced garbage. Isaiah 5. The vineyard is the vineyard of the Lord of hosts is the house of Israel. That's what it says. A man had a fig tree. Why is he planting it in a vineyard? Because it's Israel. Who's the fig tree?
Israel.
So why not stick it in the vineyard, which is Israel? Make sense?
Picture in a picture, okay.
A picture in a picture. Which had been planted in his vineyard, and he came looking for fruit on it. This is a parable that Yeshua is telling. Just like he came looking for fruit on it, it wasn't time. Well, here, it is time. It's past time. He came looking for fruit on it, and he couldn't find any. And he said to the vineyard keeper, not the fig tree keeper, the vineyard keeper, because it's Israel, look, for 3 years. What do you think that's a picture of? Nope. 3,000 years. It's a picture of three days or 3,000 years. For 3,000 years, I've come looking for fruit on this fig tree, Israel, and I haven't found it. Haven't found it. For 3,000 years I've been looking, and I haven't found any. Cut it down. Chop it down. Why does it even use up the ground? Now, before we go any farther, in Leviticus, it talks about how to get fruit from the fruit trees and what to do with them. How long are you supposed to not touch that fruit?
4 years.
And we have a difference of opinion, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, it's broken down. You're all 3 of you are right. All 4 of you are right. It says, don't get the fruit for 3 years. Don't get the fruit for 3 years. For 3 years, I've come looking for fruit on it. There shouldn't be any Well, there should be fruit on it, but you're not allowed to touch it. Then in the 4th year, what happens to it?
Well, you take the fruit and give it an offering.
Well, I don't like that word, consecrated, but you're on the right path. It becomes a hilul, which is like hallel, a praise. It becomes a praise to God. Yes? You still can't eat it, but it's now a praise to God. So he says, I've come looking for 3 years for fruit on this tree. Then no fruit. Cut it down. Why does it even use up the ground? Then what happens in the 5th year? Oh, wait. For 3 years, it is, anybody know what it's called? Uncircumcised. That's what it says, orla. For 3 years, it's orla. It's uncircumcised. But there should be fruit, but there's no fruit. 4th year, it's a hilul, it's a praise. And in the 5th year, you can take it and eat it and give the first fruits. Now he says, cut it down. Why does he even use up the ground? And the guy, the tender, the vineyard keeper says, let it alone, sir. Is that Torah? Should the Torah say that or no? Let it alone. Yeah, because it's only been 3 years. So how much longer should he leave it alone? Another year. Leave it alone, sir, for this year, too. For the 4th year, too. 4th year. Until I dig around it and put in fertilizer, and if it bears fruit, good. In the 5th year, good. But if not, then what?
Then you cut it down.
Cut it down. All right? So this is a picture from Abraham, which began Israel. From Abraham, what would 3,000 years forward be? Anybody know? 2,000 years to Yeshua's death. Almost exactly. Almost exactly. No. To 1,000 years after Yeshua. And then another day would be four days or 4,000 years, which would, at the end of those 4,000 years, then comes the day of the Lord. That makes sense? And it becomes a hilul, a praise. So he's saying, let it alone, sir, for this year too, for the 4th year, for the 4th day. That'll bring you all the way to the kingdom. And if it bears, good. And if not, cut it. At the end of the 4th day. You understand that? Did you follow that? I tried as best I could. Okay. Abraham was, we'll call it the year 2000. The year 2000 was Abraham. 2 days is the death of Yeshua. That's how many days? 4,000, okay? That's not 4,000. What am I saying? The year 2000 is Abraham. 2 days later is the death of Yeshua. That's the year, that's 2,000 years or 2 days. Yes? 2 days. Then another year after that, till say the year 1000 of our time, the Dark Ages, the year 1000. That brings you to the 3rd day. Another day after that is the last 1,000 years. Yes? Which brings us to what? The day of the Lord. That's 4 days. 4 days. I did that as clearly as I could. Did you follow it?
I did.
Did you follow it?
From Avram, not from
Hold on. Did you follow it or no?
So you're saying Abraham is 2 days?
No. Abraham was the year 2000.
Yes, you're not starting from Adam, you're starting from Avram. So
Rabbi,
that's why
do
it's
you
4
think
from
the slide
36.
that has the 7 days?
It doesn't. Oh, yeah. Yeah, good idea. Thank you. You should have just yelled it at me. Okay. Here's Abraham. Right here. Whoop, right here. Okay? Abraham's right here, year 2000. He saw 2 days later, he saw the death of Yeshua. Here's 2 days later, or 2 days. 2 days have gone by. That brings you to the 1st century. Another day goes by.
That's the 3 days.
That's the 3 days. That brings you to about the year 1000 our time. Yes? And another day, the 4th day, brings us to what? Brings us to what? The kingdom. And he says, look, if it bears fruit right here when the kingdom comes, fabulous. But if not,
Then cut it down.
cut it down, the birth pangs. Get it? Cut it down. If it doesn't produce fruit, if. We're not told if it does or not. All we're told is the parable. Okay, that helped. Thank you, Chris. Good idea. It can be, yes, absolutely. All right. Now, when Yeshua said these things, and he did these things, remember, Yeshua is a word made flesh, right? He can't just do whatever he wants. And I know you don't really believe this, but Yeshua cannot do whatever he wants. He has to only do what's in the Torah, because he's the Torah made flesh. So he can't just do whatever he wants. He has to do Torah and speak Torah. This is what he was quoting when he said and did these things. Jeremiah 8, 7 through 13. We're not going to read the whole thing. I'll just tell you what it says. It says that all these animals know the times. They know the time of their migration. They know the time of when they get in heat. They know their times. But my people, Israel, don't know my times. That's what he's saying in Jeremiah. But look how he says it. They don't know the mishpat of the Lord. How can you say we're wise and the Torah of the Lord is with us? But behold, the lying pen of the scribe has made it into a lie. The wise men, the chachamim, are put to shame. Now these are the chachamim, the people who said they were chachamim. They're not chachamim. They're disgusting. They're put to shame. From the prophet even to the priest who were saying, worship these other demons and we're going to be fine. Babylon ain't going to take us away. That's who he's talking about. They all lie. They're all practicing lies. I will surely snatch them away. There will be no grapes. Remember, who is the grapes? Israel, Jews. And there will be no figs. Who are the figs? Also Israel. And that's what he's saying. I will snatch them away. Babylon's going to come and take the figs and the vines, which is Israel.
Is that the exile?
That's the exile, right. There will be no grapes or be no Jews on the vine, and no figs, no Jews on the fig tree. And the leaf will wither like Yeshua did. May nobody ever, and the thing dries up and it withers. What I've given them will pass away. These are lying people. Jeremiah 24. Now what this says is this. I'm not going to read the whole thing. It's a different word for basket. And he says, Jeremiah saw 2 baskets of figs, but look where they are. Wait, where do you think the baskets will be? Where do you think they should be?
In the temple?
Where in the temple?
The Holy of Holies?
No.
With the priest.
Right, with the priest. Why? Because somebody brought them to the priest, their first fruits, baskets. And he says, I see 2 baskets of figs set before the temple of the Lord. That means the priest has it. 1 basket. Now in Hebrew, the word is dud. Dude. Hey, dude. The dude abides. The word dude is, one of the words for basket is dude. But guess what dod means?
Basket.
Beloved.
Like David.
Like beloved, like David. It's the same letters as David, David. Dude or dod, it means beloved or loved or friend or lover. And it's the basket of the figs. It's Israel. Couldn't be eaten due to rottenness. So there's 1 basket's fantastic and 1 basket's full of garbage. It can't be eaten. And he says what the figs are. Look, what do you think he's going to say the figs are? Okay, let me ask you this. Who do you think he's going to say the bad figs are? Because remember, there's bad figs and good figs. Who do you think he's going to say the bad figs are?
Like the bad priests and prophets.
Right, bad priests and prophets and people of Israel, right? Who do you think the good figs are?
The ones that kept Torah.
Okay. So he says, let's see, these good figs are the captives of Judah who went in the exile and went to Babylon. They're good. Why? Because they said, God, I give up. I'm just going to go with the program. But the ones who said, nah, you can't take us out of Israel. We're going to stay and fight, or we're going to go to Egypt. And he says, those are disgusting Jews. Okay? So again, I'm just showing you baskets full of figs are Jews. So now we're going to reread the Torah portion for what it means. And you should be able, if I did my job, you should be able to follow this. I tried my best. I hope it worked. And it will be, that's all I can do, is try my best. It will be after 6,000 years when you come into the kingdom, the seventh day, which the Lord your God gives you as an inheritance. And you possess it, and you settle in it after you return to it, and it's been cleansed, divided, and planted, that you shall take of all the first of God's fruit, Israel, and all who join her, which will be brought back to the Malchut, that's kingdom, that the Lord your God gives you. Are you with me so far?
Yeah.
Okay. And you shall put these Jews in containers, all different kinds of containers, and carriers, and go to the place, Jerusalem, which the Lord your God will dwell. And you shall come to the Cohen, Yeshua, who is in those days, and say to him, I declare this seventh day to the Lord your God that I have come to the Malchut, which the Lord swore to our fathers, who are themselves the first fruits. Remember, the fathers are the first fruits. Remember that? To give us. He promised to give us through our fathers. That is what I believe the parable of this, quote, law means, how it reads, how it teaches us. So let's pray. Abba, there's no way to see your kingdom unless you show it. It's just, there's too much distraction, there's too much false information and rumors and lies and foolish teaching and false doctrine and just nonsense that we've all been raised with. It's just impossible to see your kingdom unless you reveal it. So I ask that you would begin to reveal to your body how to make clear the doctrines, how to make clear the ability to see your kingdom by learning the 5 themes of Rosh Hashanah, by studying your festivals, by studying the words of the Chazal, the Chachamim of righteous, blessed memory. And I ask, Father, that you would open our hearts as wide as possible to be teachable to you. In the name of Yeshua. Amen. Shabbat Shalom. Let's do Kiddush.